Levine. I am a social worker and addiction counselor. In this video, I'm going to talk about mental illness and addiction and why it is such a vital, important topic that we must work together to deal with. I am so focused on these issues for a number of reasons. The first is, this year my only brother, Adam Wachtel, died at age 27 to a heroin overdose. He was struggling with depression, and eventually his addictions took away his life. I also met Robin Williams over 20 times, and he was such a kind, wonderful man, and someone that has such a great energy and light, whose life is taken from these issues, makes this even more important and shows us that we have to get together to handle and deal with these problems. I'm going to talk about these issues from a first-hand experience so I can explain to you what to do if someone you love or you are facing mental illness and addictions. My own story begins as a young man in New York. My parents faced a very rough battle with their marriage. They started to fight. My dad and mom would use drugs, and it became a very, very challenging, rough experience for me. My earliest memories are about 3 years old, them fighting and beating each other up, and it was so hard and painful to watch this happening. Eventually my parents got a divorce, and it was a very tough, dramatic experience for them as well as for myself. My dad became so enraged during the divorce that he kidnapped me from New York and took me to South Carolina for 10 months. I did not see my mother, and it was so scary and upsetting for a young person to not have their mom in their life. During this time, my mom had a very, very severe depression. She was already thin, but she lost about 40 pounds due to the stress and the problems that she was feeling. She went to a therapist, and the therapist said, "Listen, if you ever get your son back, he needs you to be strong, healthy, motivated, and to not lose your life. Your son needs you to come back and to get healthy." She worked for many months to get stronger, to deal with the issues she was feeling and facing, and she went on to eventually finding me. My dad and her decided, even though all this had happened, they both loved me very much, and they chose to work through these issues. As I grew up, I became interested in learning how people accomplish great goals. I started to interview and collect autographs from thousands of famous people. A few names are Mother Teresa, Michael Jackson, Madonna, Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, Steven Spielberg, Robin Williams, Tom Hanks, and over 5,000 others. I met Robin Williams over 20 times when I was a young man, and he was always telling stories and joking and laughing, and he filled the room with energy and light and love. I remember seeing him and thinking what a great success he is and how he is just so full of life. He could literally, with his brain, think of so many creative and wonderful things and make people laugh and give us light and love. And losing him this summer, as well as losing my brother, has taught me that this is not the time to retreat, to give up on helping people. We need to come together so we can help those facing depression and addictions. Sadly, the economy has caused many people to face financial pressure, and this often leads to depression. When we are feeling depressed, we can search for things to help numb the pain, and sadly many people with depression choose things like alcohol or marijuana or cocaine or ecstasy or opiates to deal with these feelings. The problems are, when you are depressed and you start using drugs and alcohol, it creates a very, very difficult challenge. This is part one of this video. I'm going to make 6 parts. I want to thank you for watching this. My name again is Blake Levine. I'm the author of the new book, Depression, Bipolar and Heroin. And please click part 2 so you can continue to see the videos that I'm making. Thank you. Part 2 of my talk about depression and addictions. And I want to begin by sharing a personal story of someone I've helped and how you can face depression and addictions in a different way. A family called me up frantic. They had their daughter was in their 50s and was living on the streets of New York City. She was a beautiful girl who was very talented and smart, but she faced both depression, bipolar disorder, and addictions to alcohol. When she was living on the streets, she would go into bars and offer to sell her body to get enough money to be able to live. This is such a tragic example of what happens when someone is facing depression and addictions. They go and do things that they would often never do. Her family called me, and she began to go into a sober house. Sadly, at this sober house, she had behavioral issues. She would fight with the people that were running it, and they were always angry at her and yelling at her, and they did not understand that she was facing not just the addiction issue, but she also had severe depression and bipolar disorder. We began to work together to understand how to get along with people. She told me that she felt that others were calling her names, were picking on her, and she felt like everyone was against her. Even though she was in her 40s, she had no friends, and the only people in her life were her family. This was something that caused her to feel sad and depressed, and she was struggling just to hold on to her life. We worked together to build her up, to get her to understand that she's a good human being, that even though she faces these issues, she has a reason for being alive. She started to volunteer at a shelter where they helped rescue dogs and animals, and this gave her a purpose, and she felt like she had the ability to be more confident and grow in her life and to be able to do something to help other people. We ended up finding her a rehab facility that focused on both addictions and mental illness, and they treated her very differently. When she had behavioral problems, they understood that part of this was from the psychosis she had from her bipolar and depression. They gave her the right medicines, therapy, support groups, as well as helping her to work on the addictions. She ended up getting stronger and healthier. She adopted a cat. She started to take care of the pet and felt like her life was getting better. For the first time ever, she made 3 friends, and here was a woman in her 40s who never had a friend. She felt like she was supported and loved, and her life got better. She eventually moved into her own apartment, and she got a job, and her ability to feel part of our world and to overcome the depression and addiction was lifted. She said when she was depressed, she reached for alcohol to help her cope, but she knew this was not the right answer. She now does things like yoga, meditation, taking walks, hikes, and figuring out other ways to rebuild her life and to get herself stable and healthy. Her family has told me how appreciated they are for the work we've done together, and to have someone they love living in a healthy place, to no longer be on the streets, to not be using alcohol, to not sell her body. They are so thankful and appreciative, and this could happen to your loved one or family. I want to also tell you that when we feel lost or alone or depressed, we feel like we need to find something to help us, something to get us through it, and many of us choose drugs or alcohol as our way to handle it. The problem is, even if in the moment you feel a little more excited or happy, when you have addictions and mental illness, it will only bring you down. You will always go back to feeling empty and lost, and this is the reason why depression and addictions cannot be dealt with by using drugs or alcohol. You must find other things to get yourself back on track. The biggest step I would say for someone facing these issues is to find a psychiatrist, find a therapist, find a rehab where they will understand dealing with both the depression and addiction, because one problem like depression can be handled in a certain way, another issue like addiction is handled, but when you put the two together, you need a large amount of support and help. This is why many people hire me to be a sober coach, because I work with people every day to listen, to motivate, to encourage, to set small goals, and to help, because it does take a village when you are trying to help someone or yourself and are facing mental illness and addiction. I want to thank you for watching part 2, and please take a look at the other parts. There are 6 parts to this video. I believe that you can get stronger and healthier, and the most important step is to have faith in God and to work on rebuilding your life. Thanks. Part 3 of the talk about Robin Williams' depression and addiction. In this section, I want to give you clear, actionable steps anyone can take to help those facing depression and addiction. Number 1 is to seek professional help. Go to a hospital or speak to a psychiatrist or a rehab facility. Do not go at it on your own. Sadly, when people are in depression, they can think life is going to end and there's no reason to go on. If that person is able to be helped, they need to get a high level of care. This means going and taking them to an ER, getting them into a place where they will keep them safe and monitored and make sure that they don't end their life. The second step is to build support around you. This means having anyone in their life explain to them why you want them to go on. This can be their family, their friends, those that care about them, or get someone that will listen and understand what they are going through. Sadly, when people are in depression, they feel like everything is dark and there is no reason to go on. You need to fill them up with as much love and support and knowledge as possible. My new new book, Depression, Bipolar and Heroin, was written to give those with depression and addiction hope. It talks about stories of those I've worked with and why it doesn't have to end with death or failure. You can figure out how to get stronger and get more motivated and be able to get your life on track. The other step is to start with small, simple goals. Now, for some people, they go to a job every day, they take care of their kids, they deal with all their responsibilities. When someone is facing depression and addiction, they need less stress and pressure. They need to do very simple things. I'm working with a gentleman who's in a very, very dark depression. Him and his wife broke up. He's living with a family member, and he is having a very, very severe battle. Even brushing his teeth, going to the bathroom, taking a shower are very hard, challenging tasks. We don't often understand how difficult it is when someone is facing these issues to do the most basic things. Today I said to him, do one simple task. Maybe that is brushing your teeth or taking a shower, and if you do that today, it is a success. I'm also working with him to teach him affirmations. Every day he tells himself, I'm scared, my life is hard, difficult, challenging, I feel upset, I feel alone, I feel lost, and I am working to teach him to say other things to himself. Years ago I was negative and depressed, and I would say to myself, my life is bad, or what if this goes wrong? And I began to listen to Louise Hay and do affirmations. Each day I tell myself I feel terrific, I feel wonderful, I feel healthy, my life is getting better, and things are going my way. What I said to him is, in the beginning you won't believe it. You'll say these things to yourself and then negate them. But if you do it every single day, what we tell ourselves, we start to believe. An example is there are many beautiful women who have great figures and gorgeous faces, and every day they tell themselves they're fat or they're ugly or they're not good enough, and they end up believing this. Even if the whole world looks at them and sees them as beautiful and sexy and smart, in their own mind they don't believe it because they've told themselves the same negative thing every day. You can start to tell yourself something positive every day. Say 3 or 4 simple things like, I feel good, I'm a positive person, life is getting better, I feel happier, I feel healthier. And if you say that each and every day, you begin to start to believe it. Sometimes these small steps work to allow us to feel more hope, more motivation, and to get our lives back on track. I want to thank you for watching part 3. There are 6 sections in this. My new book is called Depression, Bipolar and Heroin. I want to thank you because the next couple sections will focus on some very important topics, and I hope you'll watch part 4. Thank you. Welcome to part 4 of the talk about Robin Williams' depression and addiction. Many people ask me why God is such a big part of most recovery programs. Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous focus on surrendering to a higher power. And in my own life, I've learned that I can't do everything on my own. Sometimes I felt like I was in control and could handle everything, but when my life became too difficult, when I faced a severe battle with depression and bipolar, and I was in and out of 5 psychiatric hospitals, and for 2 years my life was turned upside down. I had no friends, I was unable to go to school, I was unable to do anything that I enjoyed because I was so sick with mental illness and depression. I felt like I needed something to help me get through this very challenging time. I decided to start to ask God for His help. I surrendered to Him and I asked for Him to allow me to rebuild my life. And I said that if I got through this, that one day I would get myself healthy and impact other people's lives. When I was 16 and 17 and was so sick in the mental hospital with bipolar and depression, I didn't know anyone that I could relate to. There was no young person I had met that had went through this and was showing me that I could get through it as well. I said that if I made it, I would one day help those young people so they had someone to look up to and someone that had gotten through the issues that they faced. I also talk to a lot of people about depression and addiction, helping them, and having a belief in God will give you the courage to hang on. This year was such a rough one for me. My grandmother died, my other grandmother had a severe stroke, and on the same day my little brother died at 27 from a heroin overdose. His name was Adam. He was so kind and loving to everyone. He was always fun and loved to laugh and sing and dance. He was living in Vermont at a ski resort where he worked, and he had tons of friends and was very joyous, and eventually he became depressed and started to use opiates, and he died with 1 needle in his arm from heroin. And what I learned going through that is I wanted to give up. Losing my only brother I had just moved. I just started a new job at a rehab facility, work as a therapist, and it felt like everything fell down. And part of me wanted to drink or use drugs to handle what I went through, but I chose not to. I asked God for His help and for His advice, and He said, Blake, if you will press on, if you will use this experience, I will help make other people's lives better. I sat down at my computer, and every day my therapy was to write what I was going through, all the experience I was learning, helping those with addictions, people that also face mental illness, and to use the stories and the knowledge and the hope to help impact other people's lives. I asked God for His help, and I wrote this beautiful book, Depression, Bipolar, and Heroin, and in it shares stories of many who face mental illness and addiction that I've worked with and what they've done to get their lives back on track. I also have found that for so many with these issues, they have a big amount of guilt and remorse. An example is a guy named John who was stealing from his grandmother to pay for his drug habit. He took her wedding ring and sold it to a pawn shop. He stole all her jewelry and sold it, and his grandmother was his best friend. He loved her so tremendously, but when he was in his addiction, he was willing to do anything to get the money for the drugs. He felt so sad and shameful after this, and eventually his grandmother came to the rehab to meet with him, and he honestly admitted what he did. And part of the 12 steps are to admit and apologize what you've done to others. And his grandmother said, listen, first of all, I knew that you stole them. It was pretty clear who did it, and I knew you had this horrible drug habit. And do you know how grateful to God I am that you are alive, that you didn't die from your addiction, that you were in rehab, and that you've been sober for almost 60 days. I can get another wedding ring, I can get another jewelry, but I can't get another you. I'm so appreciative and happy that you are alive, and the jewelry and the things you've done, it doesn't matter because you are here with me today, and I loved you with my whole heart, and I'm so grateful and blessed that you are alive. And you should have seen his face. He became so joyous and happy, and in that moment the pain and the tears that he had felt and the depression that was deep inside him started to lift. He knew he could start to get his life back on track. He ended up leaving rehab and getting a job and going back and starting a family. And this is what happens when you ask God for help. Things can get better, life can improve, and you can see things work out. You have to figure out when you're going through the struggle what you can do to hold on. It's like if you're in a storm, you need anything you can to be stable and to get through it. And having faith in God is a huge part. I've learned in my own life that being able to pray and have a higher power has given me the encouragement to keep moving forward, to keep pressing on. And instead of my brother's death turning me into an addict and taking away all that I'd worked for, it's allowed me to press on and help other people struggling with these issues. And now Robin Williams died, which has made an even bigger hole in many of our hearts and just shown what happens when depression and addiction take over our lives. I believe we can come together to make our world a better place and to help those that struggle with these issues. I want to thank you for watching part 4. Please watch part 5. There are 6 parts in this informational video. I want to pray for you today and your family, wherever you are, that life gets better and that things improve. I believe this will happen, and thank God for allowing it to. Part 5 of the talk about depression and addictions, I want to talk about why having family and support is so vital. When I was dealing with bipolar disorder and I was in and out of the psychiatric hospitals, I felt so isolated and alone. I didn't think I could tell other kids about what I was going through, and the people that stood by me were my family. My mom, my dad, my stepfather, my brother, my sister, my grandmother. They were the ones that would come every day. They would visit me. They would give me love. And having their affection gave me the courage to keep pressing on. I knew that there were people rooting for me that were trying to help. I've worked with many with depression and addictions, and they start to feel alone. They don't have many friends. They're isolated, and the only people sometimes in their corner are their families. And the hardest part for parents or those that have a loved one with depression or addictions is sometimes the people facing these issues will attack you. They will be mean to you or nasty or hard on you, and you start to feel like, why am I helping them? But when they are in this struggle with depressions and addictions, they need your love and support. Part of them wants to give up on themselves, and when you give them the love and the encouragement that they need, they have a reason to go on and to press forward in their life. Also navigating the challenges of going to a psychiatrist, going to a rehab. They often don't have the strength to go and provide all of these services for themselves. So it's often the loved one, whether it be the husband, the wife, the children, or the parents, that get them to seek help. I've had many people call me and say, listen, my child is battling this issue. We really need help. What do we do? And it's because that parent has given them the love and the support and the kindness that they get the help that they need. Even if your loved one's done 100 wrong things in their addiction, they've stole or hurt you or abused you, you need to be in their corner and get them the help that they need and deserve, because it is you giving them this love, giving them this hope, that allows them to continue, and without you they will often not survive. I've seen families come together, and when the person gets their life back on track, they end up having a close family. In my own life, my parents are so close to me and my children. I talk to them every day. They are in many ways some of my best friends, and now they get to enjoy. I have 2 beautiful children. I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son, and my parents get to love their grandchildren and see the hope and joy of the next generation. If they would have given up on me when I was sick and when I was struggling, I do not believe I would have gotten to be here and been able to become a social worker and an author and to help others facing these issues. So if you have someone in your family that is facing these problems, do not let them go. Do not give up your hope. You have to get them to seek help, but believe in them, and one day I believe your family can get stronger and healthier, and you can all enjoy each other. I want to thank you. We have one more section left where I'm going to give a lot of resources and tips and tools. And please know, depression and addiction do not have to end someone's life. If you get them the support and the help they need, they can rebuild their lives. Part 6 on the talk about Robin Williams' depression and addiction. I want to share that Robin Williams' life is a tragic example of what can happen when we face these issues. I met Robin, and he was always kind and giving. Even when he was struggling with depression, he helped other people. He was always willing to make people laugh and smile and give of his energy and his time. Even in my own experience, he made my life better. He made things easier. He helped me to laugh and to have fun. And this just shows that these issues, it does not matter if you're famous or wealthy or successful, it can happen to anyone. My own brother dying this year at 27, he was from a nice family, he had loving parents, he had a great relationship with me, he had friends. He still died from depression and addictions. Do not think that this cannot happen to you. It is so vital that we come together to help those struggling. Sadly, when people have depression and addictions, they feel alone. They have to start to make better choices and to get help. When you see someone suffering, do not let it go. Do not say, oh, they'll get better. Get them the help that they need. I want to encourage you to take a few steps. These are the organizations that are on the ground doing the work in the war to fight against depression and addictions. First, I'm going to tell you about the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I've done over 30 talks at local chapters of the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I'm going to Alabama this week to do a talk for them about these topics. They have local support groups throughout the country offering help to those with mental illness. Many there have mental illness as well as addiction. These groups are completely free. You can go at any time to their website. It's the National Alliance on Mental Illness. If you go on and search for their website, you can find local groups that are completely free of charge. They are so kind and giving. The people that run these groups do everything they can to help families and individuals facing mental illness. Please seek them out. There's another great group called the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance, also known as the DBSA. They also have free groups throughout the country where they offer support for those with depression and bipolar disorder. Alcoholics Anonymous is one of the most wonderful and unique groups in the world. They have no formal organization. They have no mission except to help people. They never charge, ask for publicity, or do anything except try to help. You can go look online for Alcoholics Anonymous support groups throughout the world. Anyone facing alcoholism can go there and find help, find people to help them to work through them, to get them a sponsor, and to get their life back on track. There's another wonderful group called Narcotics Anonymous, which has some similarities to Alcoholics Anonymous, and they too provide free groups throughout our world that help those with narcotics addiction. One of the big things of dealing with these issues is to be around others that know what you're facing. When you go to one of these groups, you will find people that will care and support you. And I also want to ask you to read the book I wrote. I believe the knowledge and the hope and the lessons that are in there will motivate you and encourage you and inspire you. And if you watch this video, it says you are interested in learning more about these topics, you can go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble and type in Depression, Bipolar, and Heroin and my name, Blake Levine, and get this very valuable book so you can learn how to handle these topics. I know that when people are facing these issues, they often want to give up. I've seen in my own life when times get hard, the inner feeling is to say, you know what, I can't handle it, it's too tough. And that is why when you surrender, when you let go and you ask God for help, you can get through these issues. That doesn't mean it'll automatically happen, but you can find the right psychiatrist or the right rehab and work on rebuilding these issues. I've seen people come to me with depression and addiction where they want their lives to end. They have no glimmer of hope. All they see is darkness, and they eventually get their lives back on track. They take small, slow, and steady steps because it will not happen overnight. But these small steps allow them to one day get happier and healthier. Sometimes medications will help them, therapies will work, getting in support groups. When you combine these three things, you will see life get better. And I had an example of a man come to me. His wife left him. He had a house. He was in a dark, dark depression. When he came in for therapy, he said, I don't see any reason to go on. I lost my dreams, my hope. I'm drinking every day. What could ever get better? I said, listen, if you go on the path and you work on your life, maybe your situation will turn around. You have to just get through today, one day at a time, slowly work on it. He ended up eventually meeting a new woman, getting married, having children, and these days he's happy, he's working, and he shares his stories with others. I want to tell you that you too can get your life back on track. If you take small, slow steps, you will see life improve. I want to thank you for letting me share this with you. If you ever need my help, you can reach my office anytime at 213-304-9555. That's 213-304-9555. We do coaching and support those facing these issues. We're happy to give you resources and point you in the right direction. You can also see our website, bipolaronline.com. That's bipolaronline.com. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for buying the new book, Depression, Bipolar, and Heroin. Together we can come as a group and help those facing these issues. It does not have to end like my little brother or like Robin Williams. We can save the lives of those struggling and see our world become a happier, healthier, more connected place. I want to thank you for allowing me to share this with you, and may God bless you wherever you are. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.